Hey, everybody, Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports, special guest here to talk about Oklahoma joining the SEC. Jim Ross, uh, the voice of so many of our childhoods and a voice to continue today with AEW. JR, it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
Um,
My pleasure.
you're a huge Sooners fan. We all know that, and we can see it right now. What do you
Yeah,
what do you make of OU joining the SEC? This happened so quickly, huh?
it did. It was almost like it was a done deal before it became a done deal. I look at it as a no-brainer. I don't have any. I don't know what the downsides would be for OU. I think big picture, long-term wise, uh, it's going to be a financial boom. I think. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I think that much like pro wrestling, wrestling fans like new matches and uh, new scenarios, things of that ilk. I don't think that's any different with football fans. All we're going to get is a whole series of new matches, so to speak, new games, new locations, new stadiums, new tailgating. So, and it'll be good for Norman. I have a home in Norman. I'm in Jacksonville Beach right now, but at my place here. But I'm a big believer that it's going to be a great hit all the way around, and it just makes the number one football conference that much stronger, especially with Oklahoma. Texas is still getting their act back together with Sarkeesian and so forth, but they have great tradition, facilities, all that good stuff. They just got to recruit better, I guess. But in any event, I think it's a good move for everybody involved, and it brings two long-standing, long-term, successful programs to this great big dance that's being orchestrated.
Well, I mean, we all know about the history of OU, and you've been around it. But if I had said, back in the Big Eight days that OU would be in the SEC in the future, what would you have thought then?
Well, I wouldn't have thought it was a great idea because our league was pretty strong.
Yeah.
But when all this, when Nebraska left to go to the Big Ten, I find it ironic that some Nebraska folks are complaining about Oklahoma going to the SEC. I don't know why they should care. They're not in our league anymore. We played them this year. The 50th anniversary of the game of the century is in September in Norman, and I think that's one of the things, ironically, that kind of started this whole discussion when Fox moved that game to 11 a.m., knowing that OU had a huge celebration planned for the players on both teams of 71 and, the coaches and all that good stuff. And Nebraska was always one of our, at least when I was a kid growing up, it was like one of the big deals. Thanksgiving weekend, OU Nebraska, it was just, it was awesome. And the winner goes to the Orange Bowl. There's always something at stake, it seemed like. They dominated the Big Eight. But when the league started, because of Texas largely, when Colorado left, Nebraska left, Missouri left, everything, the landscape started changing and immensely. So I believe it's timing's great. It's a big picture look. There's a lot to still be, the schedule's got to be addressed. I think that the only thing in Oklahoma it may not be the only thing, but the primary thing was a lot of our fans are concerned about losing the Bedlam game against Oklahoma State that's been played forever. But the same thing could be said about Texas and Texas A&M. They played forever, and Texas may be reluctant to want to play A&M again, or A&M, or vice versa, whatever the hell it is, whatever politics du jour may make it. That's kind of where we are. So I'm a big fan of growth and vision. And I think kind of the Big 12 kind of found a comfort zone. And I'm not a big, anybody listens to my podcast, Grill and JR, knows that I'm not big on comfort zones. I think it's a toxic type environment because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Life is just not made that way. The good Lord didn't put us here just to be, this is it, and there's no improvement. Don't work on your game. I just don't believe that's the way it's set up to be. So I'm a big fan of this whole thing, and it's gonna, I told somebody this the other day. I said, I would rather tailgate in the Grove as tailgate in Kansas State.
Yeah.
And that's going to be pissed off some people at Kansas State. Don't mean to, but I mean, you got some of these iconic tailgate locations in the Southeast Conference that I know our fans are going to love. And the great thing about Oklahoma fans is that we travel well. They got a very loyal fan base. They do the Sooners, and there's OU clubs all over the country. You know, we're recruiting nationally, so we're touching a lot of places right now, and I think that's good for our school and our program. So I think this move to the SEC is just an absolute no-brainer, and it sounds like the people that don't like it the most are old timers like me that just resist change. And again, I'm not one that resists change. I don't automatically think all change is for the negative. You know, how about the change that makes things better? And I think OU going into the SEC makes things better.
You know, some programs in the SEC, they'll puff their chests out and be like, all right, OU, you're joining the SEC now. Get ready to be third or fourth in the conference after winning so many Big 12 titles here in a row. How do you think OU will do right off the bat in football when they join the SEC, whenever that is here in the next few years?
Well, as long as we have Lincoln Riley and his staff keeps recruiting like they have as I said earlier, on a national basis, I think we're going to be competitive in any college conference that we would enter into with. You know, so I think we're going to be very competitive. It's just a matter, how do you know how we're going to recruit between now and 2025? You know, I'm looking at precedent and how Lincoln Riley has refined the art of recruiting at our school. I feel good about it. And, you know, still got that fertile recruiting ground, you know, Texas and surrounding areas. So, and they've been reaching out. So, you know, they come here to Florida and get players. Mm-hmm. They get quarterbacks out of California or Arizona. You know, that's the one thing Lincoln's done. And I think one of the things that you can look at is that we're always going to have, at least knock on wood as I am, a good quarterback. And I kind of think that's where the whole process starts. You got to have a good quarterback in any league you want. NFL, in college, Division I, any league, the quarterback's the key person, and that's going to go upset some people. Well, what about the offensive line? What about the defense? So it kind of goes without saying, but you can have a great defense, which we are building, but nothing's going to replace great recruiting and our coaching staff. Young, vibrant, upscale. You know, Lincoln Riley's. I hope we can keep him until 2025. That would be great. And of course, I don't know why we wouldn't. I don't think it's ever going to be a matter about money, because Lincoln's rapidly approaching the Saban money. And that's kind of the benchmark for all the top coaches. That's how they measure themselves, is Saban's program. And the coaches over think, well, they might not admit it, they're envious of his salary.
Yeah.
Hey. So I think a lot of guys I think that's kind of where we're headed with Lincoln. So there's so many unanswered questions, but I think in general, we're going to be very competitive. Are we going to be the best team in the SEC? I don't have a clue. And neither do they. The ones that like to pound their chest and yell like Tarzan, they're SEC loyalists, they're speculating as well. They don't have a clue how well we're going to do. And neither do we. So that's why you play the games, as the old cliche goes. And by 2025, it's going to be interesting to see how everything, the lay of the land. I'll tell you what I'm interested in. I'm really interested in the schedule and who's in what division. You know, I've heard about pods, you know, and how they're going to construct the schedule. I haven't heard anything definitive, but the schedule is really curious for me. And I hope that Oklahoma can keep the Bedlam game if things work out, because that to me, there were two. When it was hurtful when Nebraska left, because that was a fun rivalry and have been for years and years. Then, you know, you just got to have we got to let this thing play out a little bit. Who's on the schedule? Who do we play every year? Who do we play every other year, every third year? And I saw where I think I read the speculation that every 4 years, each SEC team will have played each other. So that means within a 4-year period, we know we're going to play Alabama. We know we're going to play everybody in that league. So it'll be fun to see how it evolves. I can tell you that. I'm excited about it. And it's hitting me kind of late in life. Now I'm 69, and I've seen a lot of change in this ball game. And like you said very astutely, that the Big 12 was a Big 8 was what it was, and then the Texas issue started raising their ugly head, and a lot of teams said, we don't have to deal with this. We don't have a Longhorn network. We don't have all these unfair advantages in their terms. So I think it's going to be a great thing. I think it's going to be exhilarating for college football.
With Texas, I mean, they're notorious, fair or not, for throwing their weight around when it comes to politicking and stuff like that within conferences in the past. And I know a lot of critics say, hey, they've been kind of the death nail in 2 conferences now, with this SWC and now potentially the Big 12 folding. Do you think Texas will try to throw their weight around behind closed doors once they get in the SEC, and how will that work out?
Well, that's been their MO over the years. It's hard to change the culture, but their weight being thrown around is more on reputation than current productivity. When you're not winning the league very often, and you're not competing for a national championship on a regular basis, the landscape's changed somewhat. So I'm sure that Texas will try to put their influence into the scenarios, but they're not going to have as much clout as they used to because they're not the big dog in the yard anymore. How are they going to play with others? And I think that I don't know the Texas administration. I've heard a lot of stories and things, but I believe that the OU administration is with Joe Castiglione, the AD, and Joe Harris, our president, 2 guys I know very well, 2 Joes, and they're regular Joes, and they're smart. That's why I told somebody when this thing first came out, if our administration wants to do this and they have thought it through, and I know they have, then I'm all for it because I have a belief in our administration. It's unlike politics. I actually have belief in our administration, no matter what side of the aisle you may be sitting on. But I think those guys have made the right calls, and it's going to be fun as hell. I can't wait to get rolling, and it's going to be hard. One thing about it, whoever wins the SEC's a powerful dude. They got it. And so it's not that it's different now, but you're adding a Texas and an Oklahoma in there, especially Oklahoma, because we've been hot and we've been recruiting well. And I think it's going to make the league stronger. Let's be honest about this thing. This college football, I saw something Herb Street talked about tradition and how the value of the rivalries and all these things, and how much it meant to all of us growing up. And it still means that to all of us growing up, but we have to be realistic. All college football is anymore is a television product. It's a TV show. And that doesn't mean that I'm not a traditionalist and I don't love the rivalries. Hence why I'm touting the Bedlam game. But unless you've been put in that situation, that'd be, Texas and Texas A&M is a good example. There was no reason that they should have ever stopped playing. Mm-hmm. It's a car trip. It's great for recruiting, but Texas kind of alienated themselves apparently from their old rival, and they all got too personal. They said, "Oh hell, we won't even play you guys," and that's kind of where we are. I think that's a bad thing. But all college footballs are coming as a television entity. So your programmers, what games play when, and what networks are they going to be on? It's a TV show now, and I think that's where it's going to be, because that's the television component is where the money is. And when people say it's not about the money, my experience in life in general is it's all about the money. And so for these networks to make these ridiculously inflated prices and rights fees that these schools live on, I was listening to Coach Barry Switzer, another great friend of mine, and he said, Oklahoma's a state institution. We don't get any funding from the state. we're on our own here. And the football program at Oklahoma funds all the other programs. So taking care of the goose that's laying the golden eggs are very imperative. That's a football program. So and so how much better can you get if you're going to be a football program in the top conference in the world and go in there and play and compete? And again, I love the fact there's going to be new rivalries, new games, new matchups. I think that's just terrific. And the geography doesn't kill me. I mean, I travel for a living, doing AEW wrestling every week. We're all over the place. And this geography is not abrasive. It's not bad. I've flown commercially and I've flown privately and I've flown with a team to West Virginia. West Virginia in the Big 12. And they've had some good teams, and I've had fun out there. They have great moonshine available, if you know the right people. But it's geography. As far as geography is concerned, it makes no sense. You can't get there from here, as my daddy would say. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big believer that the geography works. I think the monies are going to work. Can you imagine when the rights fee deal is up in 2025, what monies are going to be paid to get this league put together and everybody financially happy? It's going to be scary.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was reading a report and an analysis on just, the Big 12. If the Big 12 were to stay where it is now after OU and Texas leave, they go from maybe a payout of $37 million per team to $9 million per team. That tells you how important Texas and OU are to the Big 12 and to any conference.
That's amazing. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of loss of money. And you got we're all looking in our lifetimes and our jobs to find new money. How can we earn new money and get away from that comfort zone scenario? How can we create new money? Oklahoma and Texas have found a way to create new money for their schools. And for all the programs, as I alluded to earlier, whether it be softball or basketball or whatever it may be, all those sports are funded by football. Mm-hmm. They don't sustain themselves. And I know Oklahoma just won the national championship this year in softball. I'm a big softball fan. We got a great program, and one of the reasons we embrace them is that because they win or they're always in the hunt. And then now these matchups, there's some great softball teams in the SEC.
Oh yeah.
So now look at that league. Look at that softball, the game of softball. Look at having a dream game for a basketball fan would be playing in Rupp Arena. Well, guess what? You're going to get your wish. You're going to get to go to play in the world famous Rupp Arena and all these other famous arenas in the Southeast. And you're a basketball team. Baseball. SEC's got a hell of a baseball conference. And now Oklahoma's going to be put into that, where the priorities of playing baseball will be so much higher than it was when we were in the Big 12, even the Big 8. But so I just think for all these entities, all these kids, young people participating and their families having this opportunity to go see world-class games in world-class facilities is a winner for is a winner for much more than just the game of football. So I keep trying to think of ways to take the other side.
Yeah.
And I can't figure the downside.
Do you think we all want to see Bedlam continue? I think most of us do.
Right.
But as you said, there's always feelings involved. Emotions get involved, especially when you're the one being left behind. And we saw with Texas A&M when A&M went to the SEC. And I know that OU has said all the right things. Hey, we want Bedlam to continue in all sports every single year.
That's true too, by the way. That's not just lip service. That's true. Excuse me to interrupt you, but
no, I'm sorry. No,
there's a lot of Bedlam families. There's a lot of families in Oklahoma because we're a small state, not a huge population, where you've got they call it a house divided. So on game days, you'll see some orange flags sitting outside because that's the Oklahoma State thing, orange and black. And then you'll see a lot, of course, crimson and cream for the Sooners. So there's married couples, there's the brothers and sisters, there's grandparents, there's all kinds of tie in, tie back, whatever. So I'm hopeful that stays as it is, because again, I'm that much of an old school traditionalist. I do like the tradition of football. It's like somebody saying, well, Auburn's not going to play Alabama anymore. What?
Yeah.
How could you say that? Well, this new schedule, we're going to play them once every blank. People expect to see Alabama and Auburn play every single year. And the loyalists and the traditionalists don't want it any other way. And then again, how you schedule the rest of the league and all that, it's going to be really entertaining. I've seen some nice mock-ups. Golly, I don't know how. There's a lot of right ways to get this thing done, and it's hard for me to find out to determine. Hard for me to determine what's wrong with this idea.
It just makes sense in a lot of ways, and geographically, it still makes sense because, as you mentioned, you're rekindling some old rivalries and also just some national geographic matchups. Like, I live in Arkansas, so
yeah,
Arkansas versus OU, Arkansas, Texas, that was huge back in the Southwest Conference days, and
it really was.
And then you got Mizzou involved in there too, and so you had an opportunity here, as you said, like a pod system, or even if there's not a pod system, being able to play those teams. I mean, teams like Mizzou and Arkansas, since they joined the SEC in the early 90s, and of course Mizzou in 2012, they've been kind of on an island a little bit in the SEC.
Yep.
They haven't had natural rivalries. Now this is kind of helping them, and along with obviously boosting up the SEC as a whole. I think there's some really interesting matchups, but also it's going to strengthen other programs outside of OU and Texas.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. And other sports,
right?
Other programs and other sports. So to me, it's a really cool idea. I'm not going to get bogged down in when the talk started or this went behind our back and this is wrong. And Oklahoma and Texas, for that matter, haven't done anything illegal that I'm aware of. They ruffle feathers because they were leading a way for change. And again, you got old guys that are running the leagues, and they're all the same. They all look alike. It's not very diverse. They don't want to change, and that annoys me as a human being and as a sports fan, is that we have to change. It's like our TV show with AEW. We're funded by Time Warner, and it's just been it was time for an alternative to WWE. At least that's what the Khan family thought. So, and I agree with them. Our ratings have been great because we provide something new. Our ratings have been great because we have new matchups and new talents, new rivalries. It's really simple. It's just basically playing on basic human emotion, because we're not going to be playing teams. Oklahoma's not going to be playing teams in the SEC that nobody heard of. Who's that wrestler? Who's that masked man? Well, I don't know. But that's Alabama. Oh, yeah, I've heard of them. I don't know that the Oklahoma Vanderbilt rivalry is going to ever mean anything significant. It might, but the games everybody wants to see are the Alabamas and LSU's and these other powerhouses. And I think the mistake being made is that people aren't giving Oklahoma enough credit that we can come there and compete. I think Bob Stoops told me the other day that since 2000, I want to say that the OU's record against the SEC is 20-6.
Ooh.
So it's I think we've competed. And
I remember that OU Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, with Alabama.
It's Alabama. Yeah.
I was on the sideline for that game, and it was a magical night because Alabama was such a strong favorite, and nobody really gave Oklahoma a chance to win that game because, well, we're Oklahoma from the Big 12, the mediocre Big 12, and this is Alabama, and this is played in SEC country. It's still last I looked, the Sugar Bowl was in New Orleans, and that's an SEC tried and true. So location. So I'm thinking this is going to be really exciting. I wish it would have happened when I was younger. I want to live longer. I want to live long enough to see this thing really do well and have some games and so forth. But and Oklahoma will help these schools because our number one, as I said, our fan base travels well, and the fans love to boo Oklahoma on the road. So Oklahoma's the bad guys; they're the villains, and so people will. The greatest gift that a pro wrestling villain can have is for the fans to care enough about that character and this rivalry, this match, this game, whatever, to get in their car and travel, buy the tickets, buy the high dollar, $10 Cokes, and all those things, and 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 want to see those Sooners lose to Vanderbilt or to whomever. It doesn't matter. So Oklahoma will do well in that regard. They'll help the school sell more tickets where that's an issue. And I realize in some places it's a non-issue because they're going to sell out anyway. But Oklahoma's always going to bring a nice spark. The secondary ticket market is going to be huge because people will give up their tickets for enough money. Again, remember, they say it's not about the money; it's all about the money. So I think there's going to be a lot of winners here, quite frankly, a lot of winners in this thing, and let's just get it started. Let's play. Let's go play.
Do you think OU is going to snap that 0-4 record in college football playoff and win a national title this year and get to the championship? Because you mentioned the defense. I mean, it improved drastically in the second half of last season.
Right.
I think I was doing some analysis on this in the offseason. I think that was by far the best defense when you look at the analytics that they've had in more than a decade, just based off what they did in the second half of the season. If they play up to that level again defensively as they did in the second half of the year, this looks like a team that could finally win the national championship.
The ingredients are there. How that recipe is going to mature into a great dish, a great entree, nice barbecue sauce, whatever it may be, in my world. I just think it's going to be terrific. I keep saying, well, there's got to be something wrong, but there's not. And Oklahoma's defense, Alex Grinch has done a great job. He and Lincoln of hiring coaches. They get coaches that fit to the demographic the players are hiring. They just done a great job in that regard. So I'm a big believer that the Grinch defense, they call it Speed D, and they can run, man. They have great athleticism on the defensive side of the ball, and I don't think they're going to be burnt by speed. I don't think they will be. But again, same thing in football. You got to stay healthy, and you got to stay focused and not make any stupid mistakes, and be an idiot off the field. And one thing I'll say about Oklahoma, when they've had some idiots raise their head, they got rid of them. And I know, well, we should be more tolerant, so forth, so on. But sometimes they are very tolerant, and people shouldn't be. They should use better judgment. They're not going to have it there. They're not going to tolerate it. And here's the nice thing about it for us at OU, we don't have to tolerate it. Saban doesn't have to tolerate knuckleheads. If they're disruptive in the locker room, and I've been through this locker room stuff in my world many times, where to get rid of a couple of guys is probably the best for the locker room because there's too much negative energy. That those I think we call them dressing room lawyers. So when the dressing room lawyers get too verbose, they got to be censored. And normally that works by just saying, good luck on your future endeavors. It sounds cold, but until you mature and you can contribute in that regard, which is extremely important. That's what I see about Lincoln and his staff. They're young and they're vibrant and they're great communicators. And they can communicate with the kids on this level, this age group, the same music, the same attire, the same, they got a great young staff around them. Their recruiting technique and what they do recruiting, I'm telling you, it's nothing short of amazing how they've organized that recruiting department. So I'm happy with all this, the whole process. But I think our defense is good. We have a good quarterback in Rattler. They seem to be pleased with the running back room. It's not dotted with 5-star guys like it has been, but they're all good players. and they're evolving and developing good players there. They have the best offensive line coach in football, and Bill Bedenbolt, in my opinion, and not just because he and I are neighbors in Norman when I'm there. He's my kind of guy. He's a no nonsense, no BS kind of guy, and he's so straight up and honest with the kids. And he's got a track record. So a lot of these boys that want to play and want to get to the NFL where they can make a payday, they know he can put people there. And then same thing with our receivers. Dennis Simmons is a great receivers coach. So I'm a big believer that all the pieces are in place. This is the best chance in recent memory for OU to get in the Final Four again and maybe win it. I can't find their weaknesses. So right now everybody's healthy. As long as everybody stays healthy, I'm very optimistic we're going to do well. But I think you pointed out, again, astutely so, that the defense is the biggest and most positive change in the Sooners game plan. And if you're going to play with the big dogs, like the Alabamas of the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you got to play defense. You can't go into every game saying, well, we'll outscore them. That's not a good game plan. We have to outscore them. So you got to score 40 to win. Well, that's not a good trade-off. That's not a good scenario there. So it should be a fun year, and the fun years ahead. I'm living in two places. At least it seems that way. But we have 3 home games in September, including Nebraska and Iowa State. And I'm wondering how the reaction of the Sooners are going to be. It's always been people want to see us lose because we won too much. Alabama's the same way, but most of them just can't beat them. They don't have the horses. I'm wondering how the Sooners are going to be received on the road. And I know it's going to be negative. You know it's going to be negative.
Yeah.
But let's look at the society that we live in. These young dudes, man, they're defiant. They're attitudinal. So I look at that when they're getting booed out of the building when they come on the field as a motivator for them. They're going to think it's kind of cool that we're the bad guys, and they want to see us get our ass beat. So it'll be a very interesting year. Nothing like we've ever experienced before, and just wonder how it's going to. I'm challenged to think we got 4 years left, allegedly.
Maybe might be shorter. Likely will be shorter. I think
you're right, but we don't know that right now. Know that right now, but I just find it challenging to see how Oklahoma's going to, and Texas for that matter, how they're going to be received on the road by their current Big 12 teammates, peers, knowing that they're leaving.
I'll say this. I talked to Texas A&M's former president when they dealt with realignment, Bowen Lofton, and he said that year when they remained in the Big 12 before going to the SEC was absolute hell, not just on the field with fans and everything, but behind closed doors and meetings with other presidents and stuff. He just said it was just unbearable having to deal with all that and not having a voice in meetings and having to decide when to go to meetings and when to kind of abstain because they were talking about the future of the Big 12. And he said, I can't imagine OU and Texas doing that for more than 1 year, let alone 4.
Yeah.
And being able to keep sanity or, and keep things on track. So it's going to be a very interesting time behind closed doors. I wanted to, I don't know if you have the time, but I wanted to talk quickly about pro wrestling and a little bit about your career, because I'm glad you brought up locker room stuff. I've always been fascinated about your career, not necessarily because you're the voice of wrestling, which you are, but the big thing to me was like how you would run the locker room and dealt with the wrestlers and athletes. I mean, you were running really these big time athletes that all have egos and attitudes and wants and needs and the politics of all that. When you look back at like handling things within the WWE, what was maybe the most difficult era, I guess, when you were dealing with, because everybody's got egos, but when you're dealing with egos and trying to keep everybody in line?
Well, first of all, I never treated the competitors, the performers, like they were entertainers. I know the McMahon philosophy is that, you know, we're in show business and everything's our competitor, and you know, these guys aren't wrestlers or superstars, and all these little buzzword cliche things that are good for a corporate meeting or something. So I never managed that way. I found that guys want to be treated like athletes, and at least that's my experience. So there's a different way of managing. You're going to manage a defensive or manage a wrestler differently than you're going to manage a singer. At least I think I would. I am. I have, and most of them like that because they still perceive themselves as being an athlete, an athletic performer. And somebody's going to say, well, how can you say that? Because we know the endings are predetermined. We also know that they do their own stunts. They don't have stand-ins. They're obligated to make this tremendous travel schedule that has no off season. So you got to treat them a little bit differently in that regard. So that's kind of what I did. And I try to always cut to the chase, get to the point first. Wrestlers are concerned about two things: cash and creative. If you got those two items check marked, you're going to be really close to being good for a long time. So that's how I did. I separated the showbiz from the athletic part, without saying that. Well, you know, it's the endings are predetermined. To me, that has no difference. That means nothing. They still got to go out and do it, and they know that if they just go through the motions, and it looks like their punches couldn't break an egg, they're not going to last. The audience is too smart nowadays. The same thing in your world. There's so much information flow. You find that people got more knowledge of a specific topic, like the SEC issue we're talking about, than they've ever had, because they're just more studious. They got more info. So I always try to manage like they were athletes, and not. I'll give you a little example. I never called it a dressing room. Cowboy Bill Watts, the old former football player at OU and wrestler and pro wrestler and promoter, he made it clear that our guys are athletes, and they don't use a dressing room. He might say, well, Liberace uses the dressing room. These guys are in locker rooms. So little things like that you kind of get into your mindset is kind of where I hung my hat, and I still do. I'm a senior advisor at AEW. You know, Tony Khan runs the show, and his family owns the Jags. They finally got him a quarterback that they seem to be extremely happy with. And what I've seen in this week in practice, he's got a glorious arm.
Mm-hmm.
He was phenomenal at Clemson. You know, he's got that big 6'3" or 5-inch frame, whatever the hell he is. And so this is Trevor Town, where I'm living right now.
Yeah.
So are you going to treat Trevor Lawrence like a Hollywood star, or are you going to put him right back into the same arena that he grew up in? That's the athletic arena. Well, I know what I'm doing. I wanted to keep him comfortable. I don't need him to be indoctrinated to a new feel, new atmosphere. You're a ball player. That's what you are. You're a ball player. And as a quarterback and number one pick in the draft, your obligation is to lead this team and give them all hope, the other 21 starters, obviously excluding yourself, but all those other starters got to have hope, and you're the guy that's going to provide the hope. It's not going to be by the left guard, you know, or the backup tight end. That might even be Tim Tebow. Hell, I don't know. They say he's doing pretty good. Ironically, I didn't think that would work out, but
yeah.
Hey, they say it's working out pretty good. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. But point being is that you manage them to where you want to keep them in a area where they feel comfortable communicating. So I managed when I was as EVP of WWE, I managed wrestlers, not entertainers. And I also found out in recruiting, if you recruit an athlete from a mainstream entity, like they played some college ball, football, college wrestler, whatever, they don't get on the IR very often. And I've seen other guys that were more bodybuilder type pro wrestlers that if you need to find them, just go look in a trainer's room because they're getting a massage, they're getting something. And I do that. I still do that to this very day, just at tongue in cheek. I go. We have a full-time doctor, works for us full-time and so forth. I walk back in the trainer's room just see who's back there, just to be ornery, and say, "Well, how's everybody doing in the beauty shop today? Everybody okay? You got a boo-boo?" So the part said, "That old bastard. I don't want for him to come around because I'm saying something that's too close to home. Get your ass up and go. I need a massage. Did you get a massage before you came? Are you getting a massage when you get home? Well, I don't know. Well, you're not. I tell you, you're not going to do it because it costs you money out of your pocket. Yeah. And here you get it done for free."
What's it like working with Tony Schiavone? Once again for the first time since goodness, I guess the early '90s, late '80s. I mean, I equate it to this for football fans, and maybe I'm incorrect. People can disagree with me. I don't care, but you're Keith Jackson and he's Brent Musburger. That's how I see you guys.
I'll take it. I'll take that. Tony got completely burned out on wrestling in his latter days at WCW. He was disillusioned. He was not happy. He didn't like where the business was going, and so he just got out totally. He's done a lot of things. I mean, one of the earliest promos that I think Dr. Britt Baker did it with Tony was that she made fun of him being a barista and working at Starbucks. Yeah. And but he's a joy to be around. I always said when I was recruiting talent, and I had a good record, got lucky, and had a good record of recruiting a lot of guys that made it. And some of them are still trying to make it and still contributing. I saw John Cena on the WWE here a while back, and he's one of my recruits. One class had Cena, Lesnar, Orton, Batista, and Shelton Benjamin in it.
Whoa.
There's some 5-star guys there. And I will say I had a great staff, Terry Briscoe and others that were there that were helping and hitting that pavement, wearing out that shoe leather. But the classes we had were pretty phenomenal, and they've been everlasting. That was the hardest era to manage because people started making a lot more money that they weren't prepared for their success, and some of them would forget to file their taxes. Yeah. And little things like that you don't even think about. His matches are good. They're showing up on time and all this stuff, but they found their comfort zone because they're making more money than they've ever made. I had one group one year. I don't remember exactly the year, but it was during the Attitude Era, late 1999, 8, 2000, 2001, somewhere in that neighborhood. We had over 20 guys make over $1 million annually. And that was most of those guys were on a downside guarantee of $250 to $300 grand. So they were motivated by more productivity you could generate, the more money you're going to make. So it's kind of like being a salesman. Sell, and cash those checks. So I had a good run in that regard, and we got lucky on some talents, and that did really well, and they're still contributing. And I liked it. Somebody said, "What's your legacy going to be, JR?" I said, I have no idea, but I hope it's more than just announcing, because I had a chance to help some guys facilitate their careers and build something for their family.
Yeah.
And with their children and things of that nature. And a lot of them have done that. So I'm proud of that aspect a great deal. But the management of the talent, I wouldn't manage if I was in the NFL or if I was in college football. I can't see me managing any differently than I manage the wrestlers. It's not about the in ring. It's not about the on field. It's about how you motivate them. It's about how you talk to them, and how you get them to make that supreme commitment that I could be better. And if I am better, I know that JR is going to be fair with me, and I know that he's going to make sure I are getting paid in a fair way. And I get that a lot from a lot of guys. That well, you were always fair. Sometimes you didn't tell me what I wanted to hear, but you were always fair. So I like that legacy. Always fair.
I wanted to end with this. How much longer do you see yourself, one, announcing, but two, being involved with AEW or just professional wrestling as a whole?
Well, I would like for AEW to be my last stop. And I have to be realistic, quite frankly, about this whole scenario. And I've given that a lot of thought. I lost my wife in 2017 in a car accident, vehicle accident. And that was just, that destroyed me for a while, to be honest with you. She and I didn't have children, but we had a great life. And I miss her every day. Miss her right now, as a matter of fact, we're talking about her. So I don't know. It's just all these. I say this without having a definitive plan. I'd like to work one more year. I'm 69. I'll be 70 in January. I've been very fortunate I made a little money, and because I grew up on a eastern Oklahoma 160-acre farm, we never had any money. We were doing all kinds of things just to make ends meet. We grew our own food, had a massive garden. We butchered pigs and chickens, and we were old school. And so that scenario has changed a little bit. The Khan family's taken great care of me. It's probably the best job I've ever had in that respect. And people want to say, well, that's just him digging McMahon. It's not. No, McMahon made me. I did really well in WWE. I went in as a third team announcer, the guy that wears a visor like I got on now, and I'm carrying a clipboard and playing behind McMahon and Monsoon. And then when I ended up being the executive vice president of talent relations, in addition to hosting for 20 years or so their flagship television program, I did well there at WWE. So that's not a knock on them, but Tony, he's a people guy, and I think he's 35, 37. There's a different mindset when you're taking your marching orders from a 35 or 37-year-old, as opposed to taking it from a mid 70-year-old guy who's got the world to manage. So I really enjoyed it, but I'd like to do one more year. I'm in my third year of a 3-year deal. So I kid Tony Khan about that. I'm in my contract year. Give me the ball. So that's kind of where I am. My health's good, knock on wood. I'm having fun. I love working with Excalibur and Tony. Tony Khan is rarely in our ear, which is 180 from what it was at WWE at certain points in time, where Vince is micromanaging everything that was said or heard or whatever, the inflections, the whole 9 yards. So if I could do, I'd kind of like to get past 70 and say, I made it to that milestone, and then take it and then kind of look at it and see what's happening. I think Tony Khan will want me to. I think he's indicated he wants me to be a part of the AEW for a long time to come, but we'll see how that works out. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing, to be honest with you, and I hope my work holds up. Sometimes I screw up. You're doing extemporaneous speaking. You're doing live without a net. I get that. And it's just human error.
Right.
It's funny that, you know, I've been watching a lot of the Olympics. I've heard guys mispronounce names, misidentify people, and that's what you get sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but I'm happy. That's the great thing about it. I'm happy, and I'm doing what I love to do. And you know, Tony's great about, you know, for example, I'll show you how he works. We do our TV show Wednesday night on TNT, and next year it's going to TBS.
Mm-hmm.
Same family, same ball game, so to speak. So
you need to ask them to move it to like 7:05 Central Time, so I can get used to those old TBS days.
Yeah. Hey, so I have no problem, or Tony has no problem flying me from on Thursdays from the city that we were in the night before doing Dynamite back to Oklahoma City.
Oh, that's great.
And then I fly to Oklahoma City. I'm there on a Thursday afternoon. I get to do see my home there, and that my wife and I bought back in the day, and I enjoy that. And so I hang around, see my buddies. Then again, I mentioned we have 3 home games in September. Oklahoma does, so I'll be hitting those. My travel schedule, where I used to go to all the away games as well, probably won't be as aggressive. And COVID's changed that a little bit, the rules and so forth. You know, so I'm blessed with Tony's a big fan. He's a fan of my work, and he's a football fan. He knows my passion. He has the same passion for Illinois, where he went to college. And of course, now the Jaguars are offering him more, you know, a positive feel. I've only been here 2 years in this market. This is starting on 3rd year, and I've never seen a community transformed like it has been with Trevor Lawrence. And I told Tony the other day, I said, you know, that Travis Etienne is not a bad player either.
Oh man, I can't wait to see how they use him.
Yeah, he's a pretty good stud, man.
Yeah,
he's a playmaker.
Yeah,
and I think we'll see how Urban does. You know, I got a lot of friends that have worked for Urban, worked with him on his staff. Some have. Everybody's got an opinion with Urban. He can be a little polarizing.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful he's going to do a great job. I have every reason to think he will. He's picked his own coaches out. They've paid them good money. They're doing more things here. They're going to build more things here to help in training and so forth and so on. Mr. Khan is really motivated. And it's like somebody told me the other day, says, being a wise ass, says, well, what are you going to do when McMahon decides to start buying your talent? And I said, well, you know, here's what I'll tell you. The last I looked, and this nothing to sneeze at, McMahon's net worth was 2.2 billion. Mm-hmm. My boss's net worth was 8.2 billion. So you figure that. You do the math. You do the math, and come see me later on what you figured out. So I don't think it'll ever come to that kind of deal. But point being is that for me to be bold enough to get in on a startup, I could have stayed in WWE. Mm-hmm. But I served my purpose there. It wasn't a fit for me like it was back when I was first going there. It just wasn't the fit. So it's like this SEC thing, man. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and in great wrestling storytelling, great journalism, sometimes it's better to ask more questions than to provide loosely structured answers. Yeah. So that's kind of where we are here now. A lot of things developing.
I love that. I know that said that was the last question, but I do have one more because I love Tony Schiavone. I mean, when I went from WWF at the time to WCW and the NWO stuff started, of course. And so Tony, in my formative years, he was just in my head every Monday night. And then of course I went to the Attitude Era back in I guess late 99 when WCW started falling apart. But anyway, does Tony Schiavone need to be should he be in the WWE Hall of Fame? Shouldn't he?
Well, yeah, he should be in any Hall of Fame that's out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. He only had 1 year in WWE, and that might hinder him somewhat. That's a loose hindrance. He's served the business. He's been loyal. He's had the courage to come back as an AARP guy with a lot of energy and a lot of P&V. So I'm a major fan of Tony Schiavone, and like I said, we worked together. We worked together a long time. You know, Dusty Rhodes had the courage to put two play-by-play guys together in the first class of champions.
Yeah,
and we both, and Tony and I have talked about that on many occasions. We both owe Dusty a tip of the hat. So, but you always know Tony's going to be on time. You always know he's going to be there. He's prepared. He's a veteran. And it's not, you got to go through a lot of explanation. Hey, Tony, can you handle this throw to this pre-tape? Oh, yeah. And he does. So I try to help with a little bit of producing at the desk. But, you got two guys like Excalibur and Tony that are really good at what they do. Right. So I'm lucky to be surrounded by those guys. And I kid them all the time. So you guys keep me straight now. I might think I'm on the wrong show. Sometimes you don't even know why you said something. I said something the other night about WWE on AEW TV, causing big hysteria.
Oh, goodness.
And I didn't even, this honest to God truth, I didn't even know I said it until I got to my little dressing trailer. And of course I had a welcoming party. Why did you say that? Say what? So, and of course the internet went crazy. So whatever. It's just human error, man. I'm out there having fun and busting my ass. And I'm hopeful that I say the right things occasionally. So we'll see how it works out.
Oh man. Schiavone's a Georgia guy. So you guys been talking about this stuff at all with the SEC and OU?
I think he just resigned. I don't think he's going to do football this year.
Oh man.
He was a producer.
Yeah.
I think he's either going to be this year or next year. He's going to hang it up for that job. But he's fully migrated back into pro wrestling. He's fully committed to AEW, which is good for all of us that are involved with the brand. So, but he's a Georgia fan. He's a Georgia Bulldog football fan. There's no doubt about that. I said, I don't understand why you can't support your alma mater. He went to school at, oh God. They had a good softball team, and they beat Oklahoma in the first game of the College World Series.
James Madison?
Yep.
Is it James Madison? Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's Tony's alma mater.
I didn't know that.
But he don't support. I said, you're a high roller. You got that Georgia stuff in you. So, but and that's another. That'll be a great game. Oklahoma going to Athens or Georgia coming to OU. Things like that are historic. I only wish that Larry Munson was still calling football for Georgia. I'd have more.
My goodness.
I'd have more reason to listen to them. I loved his work. And I'm sure you know as well as I do that Larry didn't always get all the names right, by the way.
No. Well, that's the thing. People, I don't know why people complain about stuff like that, because I'd rather an announcer or play-by-play guy just be talking without a filter, where they're thinking things before they say it.
Yep.
React to what's happening in front of you and give me that. Because too many announcers nowadays, I'll be listening on the radio driving between towns, between games or something, and I'll be listening and I can hear the cheering and everything. And they're about 3 seconds behind what's going on the field because they're thinking things through and what they're going to say next. So I know someone has scored a touchdown and he's going, it looks like he's breaking a tackle at the 11-yard line. And I already know he scored based off what I heard in the background. So I hate that stuff. I hate it.
Yeah. That's just a feel for the game. And, the Sports Center anchor image has changed a lot of that. You don't see Musburger on TV anymore because he's too old in their eyes. That was kind of my issue at WWE. I think they just want to get younger and fresh and all that good stuff. And I always keep thinking, Vin Scully. Yeah. He's in his 80s and he's still pretty damn good. And then my hero, my role model hero, Keith Jackson, he broadcast well into his 70s. So, but I think if I can get to that level, I'll still do my podcast. I enjoy the hell out of doing that. And you know, making a pretty good buck on that, which is, when I first started, there was no money in it.
All praise Conrad Thompson. He's the king, man.
He just texted me a while ago. He's wanting me to do something, I promise you. He never worries about the mules. He just loads the wagon. So, but it's all good, man. I'm living a good life, and I love working with Tony Khan and AEWs have been cool with me. And like I said, I'm not in any hurry to leave that post. I'd like to stay another year. And if I can, health holds up and my work holds up, then that's what we'll do. But, you know, if not, I'll enjoy the beach. I'll enjoy my OU games and all those things. So, you know, I'm very blessed, to be honest with you. I enjoyed this conversation too a lot. It's good to talk football and things.
Yeah, I love it. I love being able to talk football and just life in particular with anybody. And I'm always interested in people who have had to not only build relationships, obviously every part of life's about that, but had to manage people. And I love being able to talk to people who've been like that, including yourself. But
cool.
That's great. Jim Ross, legend. Make sure and check out adfreeshows.com and listen to the Grilling JR podcast. And JR, absolute pleasure to speak to you, an honor.
My pleasure. Appreciate you very much.